Hey guys, it is that time of year again. This is one of the hardest videos I have to make every single year. I'm going to be showing you guys my top 10 favorite albums of 2023. So this year, I actually got to branch out and listen to new music. There are going to be albums in this video that I have never mentioned before on my channel. If you guys watch my videos and if you're subscribed to me, then you probably have an idea of what albums are going to be on this list. But if you are new to this channel and you have no idea what my music taste is, it's going to be a lot of EDM. I'm just going to say that right now. At number 10, I have Summertime Friends by the Chainsmokers. This album barely made the list. That's why it's at number 10. The whole rollout was like a crazy mess. And if you want to see my full thoughts and reaction to the album, I'll leave a link in the description. And to the Chainsmokers, it's more of like a compilation album. The songs I think don't really match. Well, some of them do, but just as an album overall, as a whole, I don't really like it. I don't really think all of the songs fit well into one album. There were some good singles for sure. There are a few songs I really like off the album, but the album was all singles. It's a really short album. I just didn't love it as much as the other Chainsmokers albums. It's my least favorite Chainsmokers album. Most of the album is just radio-friendly singles or just simple songs and collabs, kind of like a fun collab album, but it didn't really feel cohesive to me. It didn't really work for me. So I like some of the songs individually, but just not together as an album. There were a lot of skips on this album for me. My favorite songs off of the album are Summertime Friends, Jungle, My Bad, and Self-Destruction Mode, although I think My Bad is probably my number one favorite. Number 9 is ILLENIUM by ILLENIUM. It's self-titled. I really appreciate the album for what it is. ILLENIUM said it's his true sound. That's why it's self-titled, and that's why it's like EDM and rock. I didn't really vibe with the style of the album. I made a reaction video for this album, so I'll leave a link to that in the description if you want to know my full thoughts on it. So there were a lot of skips on the album for me. I'm not a rock fan, so I didn't really enjoy the rock songs on the album. I really only listened to the EDM songs on the album. My favorite songs off of the album are With All My Heart, All That Really Matters, Starfall, and Other Side. So there's really only a couple of songs that I keep coming back to and listen to, but I don't really like listening to the full album because I do skip the rock songs. Overall, I think some of the songs kind of sound the same. Some of the songs were really cool and creative, but then I felt others were kind of lacking. I'm probably gonna make ILLENIUM fans really mad about that. A lot of nice production and collabs, and lyrically it's really, really strong, but I do appreciate it for the variety. So if you are a fan of EDM and rock, then you've got two really cool genres mashing in that album. Number 8 is K5 by K5, another self-titled album. Now this one I have never mentioned on my channel before. I don't really talk about Cascade or deadmau5 a whole lot. I did see deadmau5 live. I saw him at the Indy 500 2022. I'm not a huge fan of deadmau5 or Cascade or them together as K5, but I do really enjoy some of their songs, especially some of the songs that are on this album. My aunt, she likes EDM. She was with me when we saw deadmau5 live at the Indy 500, and she is a big deadmau5 fan, and so she put me onto this album. She sent it to me and I really liked it, and I actually really enjoyed it more than I thought I would because it's kind of like that trance progressive house kind of stuff. My number one favorite song is Escape. I absolutely love Escape, and also off of this album I really like When I Talk, Powder Blue, and Bright Lights. The rest of the songs on the album are kind of just okay to me. The album is pretty short and I do skip most of it, to be honest, but overall I think it's a pretty good solid piece of work. There are some chill moments and some more hardcore aggressive moments. At number 7 I have Steve Aoki's album Hero Quest 2 Double Helix. This is another album that I have never mentioned on my channel before, and I actually saw him live at the Indy 500, same place and time where I saw deadmau5, and my aunt also really likes him. And this album was also released on my birthday, November 17th, so I was like, if this album is by Steve Aoki, who I already like, and he released it on my birthday, I should probably give it a listen. I ended up really liking it. From what I heard, people don't like it. I still enjoyed it, but it does have a lot of skips. I have absolutely no context for this album, so I don't know the concept of this album. I don't know the backstory behind it. I liked the visuals, the album artwork, that like cartoonish animated style I thought was really cool. But when I listened to the album, I felt like I was transported into the world of Steve Aoki, and I thought the album had really good world building, and I really felt that energy throughout the album. There are are 23 songs on the album, and I'm glad that it does have a lot of variety. It's EDM, but there's also like rap and trap songs, some more pop songs, some slap house songs. I think there were even some Latin pop songs too. So this album has a lot to offer. There is something for everyone, but with it being 23 songs, there were a lot of tracks that were forgettable. So I really like Double Helix, Lighter, Hungry Heart, Us, Locked Up, The Show, New York, and I'll Be Okay. And right now I keep coming back to New York. I really like that one, probably because I really like Regard. At number 6, I have Pilot by Citadel. I have mentioned Citadel before, but it's been a really long time. It's made up of 2 guys. They are DJs and producers, and they are signed to Stamped Records. Stamped Records is Martin Garrix's label. Citadel is so underrated. I really love their music. Pretty sure it's their debut album, and it was honestly so good. I really enjoyed it. It's kind of a mix of deep house and progressive house. It's very melodic. Citadel has a really cool bass sound or sample that they use in a lot of their songs. It's like their signature sound. It's this really cool like bass fill, and I love it so much. I really love that they used it a lot in the album. They definitely have a signature sound to them, which is very prominent throughout the album. So it makes the album feel really cohesive. In fact, the album is so cohesive. I feel like it's one really long song. Like every song, the style is so similar. So I guess in that way, it can kind of feel a little bit repetitive and similar. A lot of the songs do sound the same. If I'm listening to the album from start to finish, I won't skip anything because I really do like every single song. My number 1 favorite song on the album is Through It All with Drove. I love Drove. I also really like Narrative, Holding On, Safe and Sound, and Emptiness. Citadel is really unknown and underrated. I highly recommend checking out this album. There's also a song with Martin Garrix on the album. It's called Alive, so you guys might like that too. At number 5, I have Don't Get Too Close by Skrillex. I really like the genre of this album too. It's EDM and rap, or I guess trap you could say, even with some drum and bass. I did make a reaction video to this, so if you want to get more details on my thoughts, I'll leave the link to that video in the description. There are some skips on the album for me, but overall, as an album, I feel like it's really good. Lots of storytelling, some very personal moments on the album for Skrillex, and there's also a good number of some catchy, upbeat songs too. There are some really great instrumentals on this album. There are a few skips on this album for me, but I still would listen to it from start to end, and I do enjoy it every time I listen to it. Listening to some of these songs throughout the summer was such a vibe. I think overall it's a really fun and enjoyable album. So my number 1 favorite song on the album is Way Back. I absolutely love it. It was in my Spotify Wrapped. I also really like Mixed Signals, Bad For Me, Summertime, Real Spring, and Selecta. Really great features and vocal performances from those features. Some of the lyrics are kind of okay, but overall, I would say everyone did a pretty good job, and Sonny himself even sings on this album, so I thought that was really cool too. At number 4, I have This Mixtape Is Fire 2 by Dylan Francis. This album has only been out for a couple of weeks, but I really love and enjoy it so much that it's so high on my list at number 4. This is the sequel or follow-up to his album This Mixtape Is Fire, the first one, so this is part 2. That's why it's called This Mixtape Is Fire 2, T-O-O. Kind of like the number 2, you guys get it. I'm just a sucker for house. Although it is a club album, I know some people don't like club albums, so there's nothing super deep or meaningful in terms of the album's concept, but I still think the bangers are just really fun to listen to, so I like it for that. So yeah, it is a club album, lots of house and techno, and I really like Dylan Francis because I feel like he has a ton of variety and he's kind of crazy. Like, he can do so many different sounds. There's a lot of great vocal chops and bass lines. I'm just always in the mood to listen to house. There's a song with Alesso, there's a song with ILLENIUM. A lot of the songs are just really catchy. Before the album came out, Goodies was my number 1 favorite, but now I think Can't Stop Me Now might be my number 1 favorite song off the album, and I also really like Killa Blues, Mind Your Business, Buttons, and Rainy. Now we're in the top 3, so my 3rd favorite album of the year is by the band Camino, and it's called The Dark. This is the band's 2nd studio album, and yes, it's the only non-EDM album on this entire list. There's a lot of metaphors, but The Dark kind of stands for the darker sides of life and in relationships, so I kind of like that metaphor being the album title. But there's also the aspect of finding light at the end of the tunnel. There's great vocals on this album, some really fun groovy bass lines, really amazing guitar solos, also some electronic stuff, like they do use synths too. They're a rock band, but I think this album has some pop influence in it. They're like an indie pop pop rock band basically, although this album is definitely their most rock sounding album, but there is enough pop and electronic for me to like it. Sometimes I skip a few songs, but I honestly don't mind listening to it from start to finish. My absolute favorite song is called Afraid of the Dark, and I also really like Save My Life, See You Later, Novocaine, and Last Man in the World. I don't know, I just feel like with EDM it's like all electronic, and when there's an album like this that was recorded with live instruments, I just really appreciate it more, and so that's why it's at number 3. They also have some really catchy songs, like the lyrics are just, they get stuck in your head and they're really fun to chant, and a lot of good vocal melodies as well. Like a lot of the album was really memorable for me, and again, I think this band is just so talented. At number 2, I have Drive by Tiesto. This album was the soundtrack to my summer. Honestly, most of the songs are like radio mainstream songs, like nothing super deep or meaningful, but I honestly don't care. Like I love this album so much, I just don't care about that because I feel like a lot of the songs are bangers, even if they are super simple. I like a lot of the vocalists, I like a lot of the features, and it's honestly a lot of my favorite genres too, like house of course. There's a lot of bass house, slap house, some progressive house. I just have a lot of fun summer memories attached to a lot of the songs on the album. I can always come back to these songs, I don't get bored of them. I know some people don't like the album for a lot of different reasons, and I can totally understand that, but I kind of look past that. Like I just genuinely enjoy listening to the album. I talked about it more in my album review, so I'll leave a link to that video, but even if a lot of the songs are kind of basic and simple and they kind of sound the same, I still really like them. This is a very bass focused album, I feel like, just because of the slap house and bass house songs. That's why I like it a lot. I'm a sucker for great bass lines, so there are a lot of memorable bass lines on the album for me. I have a lot of favorite songs on it. My favorite songs are All Nighter, The Business, The Motto, Chills, Yesterday, and Back Around. It's another album that's like a dance club album, and I just really found myself loving that kind of music this year. And that brings us to my number 1 favorite album of 2023, and that goes to Quest for Fire by Skrillex. I love this album so much. Quest for Fire, from the second it came out, I figured it was going to be my favorite album of the year, and I was right. I've been listening to this album non-stop since it came out. I think it was February. I can listen to the full album again and again, not skipping any song, and I will just love it every single time. I don't get bored with the album. I feel like I'm listening to it for the first time every time I listen to it. I just always find some different details or new ear candy things that I never noticed before. So every single time it's like a new experience. I'm always finding something new that I like in every single song. Like his attention to detail, especially in this album, is incredible, and there are so many amazing collabs and features. This album is just overall so creative, I feel like, and I wasn't even a big Skrillex fan before this year, mostly because I don't really like dubstep. I like some melodic dubstep, but in general I'm not big into it, but Skrillex really made me like the genre more with this album. If you want to see my reaction video to the album, I'll leave a link in the description. It's so hype, it's so energetic, it has fun, happier, upbeat moments, and then it also has some darker, more depressing moments, so I like that variety. This album honestly has me hooked from start to finish every time I listen to it. I like that mix of trap, EDM, dubstep. It's not like anything I've ever listened to before. Like before 2023, I don't think I would have ever listened to music like this. There are no skips on this album for me. I genuinely like every single song. I think my number 1 favorite is Butterflies. It's so fun and bouncy and catchy. I love Butterflies. I also like Leave Me Like This, Supersonic, Good Space, and Tears. So yeah, Quest for Fire, absolutely amazing album, 10 out of 10, highly recommend. So that was it. Those were my top 10 favorite albums of 2023. I cannot tell you how many times I changed this list. I thought about it for so long and I'm really indecisive, so this was honestly so hard to make. I kept changing it around, but I feel like I finally came up with a good list that I am happy with. In the comments, let me know your guys' top 10 favorite albums from 2023, or just your top favorite albums of the year. Next week's video is going to be my top 10 favorite songs of the year. That is going to be so hard to make, but stay tuned for that video. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!